Today we're going to be talking about my reselling income and the sales that I had last month. Overall, it was a pretty decent month in June. The overall sales number did go down just a little bit, but the great news is that my final profit stayed pretty much about the same. A very slight decrease, but for me that's a huge win because that's something that I've been struggling for a long time. Just having big sales numbers, but then my end profit doesn't match up that well, and that's mainly because of my cost of goods being high, but I'm working on that and it's starting to show in my numbers. At the end of the video, we'll talk a little bit more about that and how each platform performed for me last month. For now, let's talk about some of the great sales that I had and some of the not so good ones too. Let's start off with some of the sales that sold for the most money last month. We're going to start on the lower end and end with the top sale of the month. First up, we have this Mi Golondrina peasant blouse. It was floral embroidered, and I threw in there the keywords Mexican, boho, and cottage. I heard this brand several times from Gloria. She has a YouTube channel where she does a lot of thrift with me's or shop with me. She also shares her sales on the weekly basis. They're really informative, and that's who I heard this brand from. As soon as I seen it on the rack, I recognized it and I knew that it was worth a lot. I think I went wrong with this one though because I overpriced it. I priced it at like $80 or $90 initially. Someone sent me an offer. In total, this customer paid $60.56. My final earnings were $40.47 and it was listed for 68 days. I did find two this day. The other one is still sitting. I have to relist it and lower the price a little bit to get it moving, I think. This next one is these Adidas tearaway. I think another keyword people use is breakaway pants. They had the snap buttons on the side. I also labeled them as track pants. It did kind of worry me a little bit that they were this like super bright purple color. I thought it was going to take a while to sell because of that, but in the end, it ended up performing pretty well. Someone sent me a $50 offer that I accepted. Earnings after fees was $39.34, and it was only listed for 28 days. Here we have this next one, which is the Spanx Ponte Flare Pants. I threw in their career, dress, high-rise, pull-on, trousers. I always like to use pants and trousers when they're kind of these work style pants. These sold for $54, and that's because they were new with tags. After fees, I was left with $42.49, and they were only listed for 21 days. Spanx is becoming one of my bread and butter brands. I seem to find a lot around me in my area. I do skip anything that is way too slim, but when they're flare or wide leg, I do look up the specific style to see if what I'm paying for it is going to be worth it. Next, we have again on Poshmark these Emojin and Willie Carpenter utility work pants. They were men's and they were a brown canvas straight leg style. This is a huge bolo brand. I seen other resellers sell just simple items by them for high prices too. These sold for $65. It's an offer I received and accepted. After all of the fees, I was left with $51.14, and it only took 5 days to sell. Next, we have these Rothy's Lugso loafers. They were a dark brown knit, slip-on style. Preppy, minimalist are the two words I used, and also comfort I threw in there at the end. These sold for $68. Earnings after everything was $53.50, and they only took 20 days to sell. Rothy's I'm going to pick up every single time. If it's their ballet simple flats, I like to pay like $4 to $5 for those, but when it's something substantial like these loafers or maybe even some Mary Jane style pumps, I don't think I've ever seen boots, but I have seen sneakers by them. All of that, I look into it further if they're priced up too high, because even sometimes with high prices it can be worth it. I don't remember exactly what I paid for these, maybe like $10 to $12, so a great profit in the end with those. Next on Poshmark again, we have this floral embroidered trench coat. It was a canvas blazer jacket, and I threw in there boho, cottage, and artsy as keywords because it gave me that vibe with all the floral embroidery everywhere. This here I did pay up for at the store. I think it was like 16 bucks or so. I did show it in a thrift haul, which I can link for you if you want to see the price of this and other kind of items I get. It just depends. Sometimes I am willing to pay up for stuff depending on style. This one looked very substantial to me because it was the longer length. I thought even if I have to wait until fall, as long as it sells in the, close to $100, it'll be okay. In the end, I accepted this $73 offer. Earnings after everything was $57.44, and it only took 21 days to sell. Not bad for something that I expected to sell in the fall. And then we have this amazing sale. It was these vintage Dr. Martin Daisy platform shoes. I always use the same keywords with these type of shoes: Y2K, grunge, chunky, derby, Oxford. Every single listing that I post with shoes that look like this by Doc Martens or by Skechers, I try to use those same keywords. They sold for $84. Earnings after fees was $70.53, and they sold the exact same day that I listed them over on Depop. I actually thought this style of Doc Martens had gone down a little bit, but I guess I was thinking more so Skechers. Skechers vintage shoes, I think those have gone down in value, but it seems like these Doc Martens ones are still doing pretty well. And then we have the final, most exciting sale of the month. It was on Depop again, and it was this Los Angeles Lakers Kobe Bryant vintage Reebok jersey dress. I threw in there Y2K and retro as keywords at the end of the title. This one, someone sent me a $100 offer. After all of the fees, I was left with $95.99. This must have been a sale that wasn't boosted, which is why I was left with a lot of my money, which is amazing. And it took 40 days to sell. I paid like $8 for this jersey dress. I was super surprised the thrift store didn't price it up because they normally do price up jersey stuff, and especially I would think a Kobe Bryant type of jersey, but maybe whoever priced it didn't really know what they were holding in their hands. All right, now we're going to talk about some of the items that didn't sell for as much money. Some of these I would still pick up anyway, and some of them is just a lesson learned. I wouldn't pick it up again. Starting off on Depop, we have this pleated micro skirt. It was a black denim, had ruffles, buckles on the side, and I used moto and grunge as keywords. I'd say this is more of an experimenting type piece, which didn't perform too bad in the end. I did wish it would have sold sooner. It took 42 days to sell, but still I think this is something I would pick up again. It sold for $16.49. Earnings after all of the fees was $13.47, and I must have paid maybe $2 for this skirt. So I am still going to keep experimenting with micro skirts at least through the end of the summer, but I am going to try to push for 18 at the very least, but hopefully $20 is what I'd like to sell things for. Next, another experiment. This one didn't go so well. It was these BDG cargo carpenter pants. They were green, utility, baggy, relaxed, wide leg, and I put in there skater as a keyword. I picked these up thinking maybe I could sell them even though the brand isn't that great, just based on style, because back then this type of style was really going strong, which I think it still is. It just lost its steam a little bit from what I see. But yeah, these sold for $16. My final earnings was $12.59. So that part isn't the worst. It's just the days. It was listed for 132 days. I like to sell my items within a couple months, preferably 3 months is pushing it. Anything over 3 months. If it's not selling for top dollar, I rather not. Next, on Depop again, we have this floral lace baby doll mini dress. It had a shark bite hem, and I used Whimsy Goth and Dark Fairy as keywords. This one performed similar to the last one. It took 145 days to sell, and it sold for $16.49. Earnings was $15.45 for me. So this is one that I would pick up again because it took that long to sell because I had to relist it. Someone bought it from me. It got delivered to them, but the address was wrong. So it came back to me, and after I listed it, it didn't take too long to to sell. So even though this looks like a bad sale, it is something I would try again with these kind of lacy, tiered, asymmetrical type slip dresses. Next, on Mercari this time, we sold this cloth and stone popover chambray blue denim top. I used coastal as a keyword there at the end to try to get it sold, and I mean, I guess it performed semi-okay. It took 67 days. It sold for $14.59. Earnings after everything was $12.39 for me. So in the end, the final profit starts dipping below $10, and that's where I don't like to go. At the end of it all, I want my profit to be at the very least 10 and above after cost of goods, but if it's 15 and above, that's really where I'd like to be. But once it starts being below 10, it's like a definite no. So that's why cloth and stone tops is not something I would try again. Then we get to Poshmark, where I sold these Crocs cork wedge sandals. These I've had for a while, I believe. Let's see. They took 84 days to sell. They sold for $14. Net earnings was $10.85. And again, after my cost of goods, I'm dipping below the $10 mark. So this is something I would not pick up again. I feel like cork, wedge style shoes, sandals, whatever, it's just not that popular right now. I did recently pick up some aerosols cork platform sandals that did end up doing well. So I wouldn't just say everything is doing bad that has a cork midsole, but wedge styles, I think so, and Croc styles, yeah, when they're cork, I'm going to avoid them. Alrighty, now we're going to talk about some items that sold really fast for me. We're going to start with some 3-day sales, then we'll move into some 2 days, next day, and then we'll talk about the ones that sold the same day that I posted them. First up, we have this Maeve Anthropologie maxi pocket shirt dress. Had a geometric floral pattern, so I made sure to put that in the title, and then I threw in the keyword artsy. I like to also use the keyword cotton when it's 100% cotton and I have extra space. And another thing that I've been trying to make sure I put is the word pocket when a dress does have pockets. I've noticed that that is a very hot keyword for dresses. I've had at least 2 or 3 people message me on these reselling platforms asking me if the dress had pockets, and also when I'm outsourcing, I hear people talking sometimes and I listen to what they say when they're talking about clothing just to get their viewpoint on things so that I know what to look for or what to add to my titles. And I do hear people saying like, oh, look, this dress has pockets. So apparently it's something very important for people, for dresses to have pockets. So make sure you're adding that to your title. If it has it, it may help you make a quicker sale at the very least. This one sold for $51. Earnings was $40.13, and it took only 3 days to sell. Then we have one of these bundle lots that I like to show every now and then. This one though was 5 pairs of shoes. It included Jordan, Nike, Puma. So I threw in all of those brand names there in the title, and it was a bundle lot set from my son. I picked all these shoes up either with credits on Poshmark from people who sign up for an account using my code, or at the thrift store at half off day. So I didn't pay much for any of these shoes. They sold for $58. My earnings was $34.14. Then the next fast sale was on Depop, and it was these vintage Puma Zandy ballet flats. The keywords I used at the end was Y2K, retro, and sport. Puma is a real popular brand right now, especially on Depop, and especially these ballet style shoes. And if you could get some that have more of a sneaker look to them but still ballet, those are doing even better right now just because of the whole Y2K thing. It leans into that. The Speed Cats as well, they've been doing really well for a long time, but even more so now. So if you see any Puma Y2K looking shoes, you should do your comps because they could be worth a lot. These only sold for $30 and the earnings was $28.49, but I must have paid like $4. So that was a great profit and took just just 2 days to sell. Here's the shoes I was talking about earlier. Actually, this sale happened on Poshmark, and it was these aerosol platform sandals. They were woven, had a block heel, square toe, and were a slingback style. So even though they did have that cork midsole, it had a lot of good qualities going for it. Woven shoes are doing really good right now too. The slingback style, I feel like, also does pretty well compared to other styles. So for those reasons, and because I did comps, I decided to pick up these shoes, and they did well in the end. They sold for $32. My earnings was $25.18, and again took just 2 days to sell. All right, one more 2-day sale, and then we'll get into the 1 days. These were some Nike lace-up shock athletic shoes. They were blue, pink. I used keywords casual, retro, and Y2K. They sold on Depop for $45. My earnings was $42.95, and that is amazing. That is why I love for my higher dollar sales to sell on Depop, especially if they end up selling not boosted, because I keep more of my money. When it comes to Nike shocks, they did have a little bit of a fall off. They're not going for nearly as much as they did years ago, but it depends on the colorway you get to. I still pick them up even if they have a little bit of damage, as long as I can get them for a good price. I paid $8 for this, so that was an easy pickup. Next sale that sold in just 1 day was on eBay, and it was these custom Levi's Daisy Duke fringe jean shorts that were cut off blue denim Y2K festival and boho. So can you see why I decided to pick up these shorts? So many great keywords to use. I did take a chance. I didn't do comps because of the look of them and because we were in festival season. I think we still kind of are, but back then we were right in the middle of it. So I paid like $5 for them. They ended up selling for a total of $34.75. My earnings was $22.67, and because they sold the next day, I think I might have underpriced these a little bit, but I wasn't trying to go too high because I didn't see that many sold comps for DIY Levi shorts. But next time I think I'm going to push a little bit higher. Next on Poshmark, we have this same day sale. It was these Tars, which I don't know what brand that is, but there were some linen blend barrel pants. They were dark brown, wide leg, pull on, and the keywords that I like to use for these style of pants that are very relaxed fitting is lagan look, crop, and also the word gaucho. That has proven to be pretty successful to help me get more eyes on these type of pants. And the reason I decided to start using that word is because a customer messaged me and asked me, aren't these pants basically gauchos, which was on some Maeve Colette pants? And then I looked up the word, I saw what they look like, and then I thought, you know what, I should start using that keyword. And I have since then, and I feel like it does help. So try that out. They sold in a bundle actually with a couple of other items. If we divide everything up into all 3 items, they sold for $22. My earnings was $17.31 for those. Then we get to the next same day sale. This one was on it was on eBay, and it was these couche slipper loafer shoes. They were men's, 11, tan, canvas, slip-on, comfort, minimalist. I got these shoes because they looked very interesting to me, and when I looked up comps, my suspicions were confirmed that this is a high quality minimalist style brand that people are looking out for. So hopefully I find more of this. They sold for $54, and my final earnings after everything was $25.70. I guess their shipping label was pretty expensive, which is why my earnings is way less than the order total. But they sold same day, so this was an amazing sale after all. Real quick, let's just go over a few of the items that took way too long to sell that I plan on never picking up again. First up, we have one on Poshmark. It was this Barefoot Dreams Cozy Chic Cardigan Open Front Sweater. This I assumed was still a good brand when I started sourcing clothing again, because these kind of cardigans did really well back in the day. But no, they have fallen off. I've seen a lot of them since then, but I avoid them completely. This took 237 days to sell. Again, it was in a bundle, so the final sale was $14 and my earnings was $11.02. Those are some pretty bad earnings for 237 days. I will pick up Barefoot Dreams items because I have since this cardigan, but they have to be unique, not this older style open front poncho thing. Next, on eBay, I sold these Athleta Venice jogger pants. These here took 245 days to sell, sold for $25.80. My final earnings was $12.51. Anything that's a jogger style, I am very hesitant about. I will look up some here and there by different brands, but for the most part, jogger style athletic pants is a no-go right now. The next slow sale is these Soul Society Peep Toe ankle booties. This is another brand that had a huge fall off for me, and even this style of shoe, the Peep Toe booties, used to do really well in this brand and also Vince Camuto and Fry, and now they don't sell that well. So I'm avoiding this style altogether, and especially this brand. It would have to be something very special, maybe when we get to the winter, some other boots. But yeah, Soul Society is not something I look out for anymore. They took 297 days to sell. They sold in a bundle. The sale ended up being $10 when we divided up. My final earnings was $7.87. That is terrible. Then we have one on Mercari, and it was the Singer Morrison again Peep Toe booties. They were gray suede, high heel, in a moto kind of style. I do not know why I decided to pick up these shoes, because just like I've talked about with white style boots, they don't sell that fast. That's also the case with gray color boots. They usually sit a little bit longer than your normal black or brown. It's not to say I'm going to never pick up anything that's white or gray in footwear, but I do need to do more thorough comps with those nowadays. These here took 708 days to sell. They sold for $27, and then my final earnings was $24.30. Next, we have one on Depop, which this I would pick up again. It was these Corky's floral lace western ankle booties. These sold in 822 days, but the problem with these is that they sold, but then they got returned to me, and then I never listed them again. So that's why it shows that they were listed for 822 days. Maybe they would have sold way sooner if I would have relisted them as soon as I got the item, which I'm usually pretty good about. I don't know how this slipped through the cracks, but it is something I would pick up again. These were damaged, which is why they sold for $14.50. Final earnings was $11.78. But if I could find these in great condition, the style of them is really popular right now because they give me this like Ren Fair Victorian but Western at the same time, and those are the kind of styles that are doing really well. All right, getting into the numbers for the month of June, total sales was $5,683. That's what customers paid these platforms. That's what that number is. But the platforms paid me $4,199 after they take out fees, shipping costs, discounts, coupons, all that stuff. But from there, I still have to deduct my cost of goods, which is what I paid for the items that sold within June. And that was a total of $1,188, which in the end leaves me with a final take-home profit of $3,010. So as I said at the beginning of the video, that total sales number did go down more than the final profit. I think last month I did hit above 6,000, but the final profit is not down by that much, which I love to see. Now let's talk about the inventory and how that performed, what's going on there. In total, I listed 210 new items in June. I will tell you, I meant to do a lot of relisting, but I didn't. I think that would have helped me even more. But I was in the middle of trying out a new cross-listing software, and that just kind of messed up my routine that I have. I did end up selling a total of 193 of those items, which again I think is great, because although I did list 210 new items, they weren't all consistent throughout the month. Most of those happened towards the end of the month. The first half of the month I wasn't sourcing as much or listing as much. I think I talked about it in that income reseller report. So I'm glad to see that I at least managed to sell 193 items. All of those sold for an average selling price of $29.45. That average selling price is going down slightly, and that is because I am buying items that sell for a lot less now that I'm also selling lightweight clothing. Back when I was selling just shoes, obviously those go for more, especially like higher quality boots. So my average selling price was always in the 30s or above, but now I'm starting to see it in the upper 20s more often, like at least 28, 29. But if my final numbers still add up, I don't really care. I just want to list stuff, sell stuff, make a profit, at least $15, and when it's slightly below that, I'm still good with it. The average cost of goods for everything that's sold this past month was $6.16. Average profit was $15.60. And again, numbers I love to see. $6.16 is the lowest all year that I've paid for inventory within a month. I do want to share this number because it's something I'm starting to really pay attention to and trying to grow, and that is my overall inventory. Everything that's in these boxes. I ended the month of June with 520 to 530. I don't know for sure. I'm going to try to check the last day of every month from now on and just keep track of it and mention it here, just to kind of keep track of how my inventory is growing or decreasing. Now let's move on to the platform breakdown. First, I'm going to tell you the numbers for each platform, and then we'll get into the details of each. So on Poshmark, I did sell a total of 93 items for $2,544. On eBay, sadly, it went down from last month. I sold 39 items there for a total of $1,476. And then Depop, it popped off for me. This is the most that I've ever sold there. It was a total of 48 items for a total of $1,367. And then we go to Mercari, which I ended up doing pretty well. Sold a total of 13 items for $295. I say pretty well because the number of sales definitely increased from last month. Last month I sold a total of 3 items on Mercari, I think. The total sales number is low though, because a lot of those items were just things I was trying to get rid of that I've been having for a very long time. I was running sales there and stuff, but let's get into each platform before I get ahead of myself. Starting off with Poshmark, their sales started off kind of slow at the beginning of the month, but as always, towards the end of the month, I always start looking into what kind of sale I'm gonna run and on which platforms. This month in June, I decided to run a 40% off sale, which is something I hardly ever do. 40% is a lot. But what I did was just send out 40% off offers on any items that were 60 days or older. And that triggered lots of sales for me, which helped me make more than I would have on Poshmark. Every day I do send out 20% off offers to all likers, but since I increased it to 40, new likers got that 40% off offers, as well as super old likers as well. So I think that's why it helped. And if you need just a little bit more clarification on how that works, you can go watch my video I did all about Flip. It's the tool that I use to share my closet every single day, once an hour. It also sends out automatic offers for me, and I use it for this as well, where I send out bulk offers every once in a while. So if you want to see how to run sales with that tool, I'll leave it linked in the description. You'll learn about that and many other things that you can do on Poshmark to hopefully increase traffic and sales. Now, when it comes to eBay, eBay, something I do there all the time is have a continuous 20% off coupon running in my store. So if someone comes across one of my items, all they have to do is input the code and they get 20% off. And for those people that didn't purchase that way and instead liked or watched the item instead, I send them a 20% off offer. So it ends up being the same thing, whether they use the coupon or whether I send an offer. I set up this coupon once a month, and then when it expires, I just refresh it and set it up again. Well, I forgot to do that in the month of June. That coupon was turned off for several days and I didn't realize I forgot to set it back up. So I think that had a slight effect on my sales on eBay. I normally make, on average, I'd say anywhere from like 20 to 30 sales from that coupon a month. So I think that kind of affected my sales, but also I have heard people all over social media talk about summer slowdown and how eBay is getting hit the hardest. So hearing that from other people made me feel a little bit better that it's not just me, where I had eBay go on for days without offers or activities or likes or anything like that. It was pretty quiet, just like Poshmark, more so towards the beginning of the month. Now with Depop, as I said, that's the most sales, at least when it comes to the amount of items I've ever had there. But sadly now I think free shipping is over and done with from what I've seen other people talk about. And also when I'm listing my items and when I make sales, I see that Depop did charge the buyer a shipping price. It is a very discounted shipping price, so maybe that will still help us continue making sales on Depop, but it's not free anymore, and I'm not sure if they're going to keep it discounted for long. I wish they were a lot more clear of what their plan is and what they're doing over there. Next, Mercari. As I said, last month I did make only 3 sales there, and mainly that was because I stopped listing on that platform for like a month and a half. But when I came back and started listing all of the items I still had available that didn't make it to the platform, it triggered the algorithm. That usually happens if I leave the platform for a long time, then come back and start listing 10 a day of all of my older items. I usually start seeing a lot of activity. That, along with a sale, usually does the trick, which is what I did in June. I just went into my Mercari store, ordered all of my items from oldest to newest, and went in and did a 72-hour sale. Some of them were 30% off, but a lot of them were just at 20% off. Then that is a wrap. That is how my June went. In the comments down below, let me know, how's summer been for you? Are you holding up pretty well, or is summer slowdown really impacting your business? Let's talk about it down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.